Welcome to Edge of Intelligence, where we spotlight how industry leaders are executing AI, automation, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Carl Owen, fractional CIO and AI strategy advisor at Protelligent. Today's guest, David Hyde-Volpe, CTO and principal engineer at Vizius, a Greenville-based cybersecurity consultancy focused on practical assessments, clear roadmaps, and expert implementation. David has deep experience in cyber risk, leading complex pen tests, compliance assessments, and strategic security advisory. David, welcome to Edge of Intelligence.
Thanks, Carl. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. To start, take us through your journey from shaping security programs at North State and Red Pill to co-founding Vizius and becoming CTO.
Yeah. So I got into IT and cybersecurity circuitously. I actually started. I'll step one step before that. Started as a chemist. I was a theoretical chemist, and I got into writing high performance code because I figured if I couldn't write the code, I would just be a slave to those who could. So I taught myself to code as a chemist and started doing some high performance stuff, some GPU stuff, and in so doing, along the way, discovered that it wasn't chemistry per se that I really enjoyed. It was problem solving. And so I decided at some point during that to kind of just get into software development. Started my first company with some guys, and we did some software development stuff, and not financially successful, but I learned a ton. And then was doing that and doing some other odd side things, as anyone who's done the startup hustle knows. And I met my now wife, and I decided I had to grow up and get a real job, at least for the time being. So through my pastor at my church, I got introduced to a guy named Glenn Johnson, who is the CEO and my co-founder at Vizius. At the time, he was the CIO and CISO at North State, and he gave me a shot. I told him I didn't know anything about cybersecurity or IT. But I asked him, why would you give me a shot? And he's like, well, I'd have to pay someone with the requisite experience this, and I only have to pay you that. And I was like, fair enough. I was like, but I do expect to make that someday in the next 3 years. And he's like, deal. So, we started on a journey together. I was his security manager at North State, and I started learning a ton, reading a ton. I got such great experience there because I got embedded with a really great professional service security team that was servicing a very large Fortune 50 client of theirs in the Greenville area. So I got to touch all the toys and work with the very best in cybersecurity. And once I got my kind of feet under me with cybersecurity, I took over the cybersecurity team at North State, which was an internet service provider. It's like all the other small regional ISPs, subject to the roll-up game that is everything in telco right now. So that's what actually brought us to the founding of Vizius, was the acquisition of North State. I stayed on for a little bit to make sure the team was being well treated and taken care of. Everybody was landing where they needed to land. But once that was in place, I jumped and joined Glenn. Glenn got the axe as one of the C-suite, right? But he got a little bit of a golden parachute, and we used that to found Vizius. And so we based Vizius on a prior company that Glenn had helped found called Stalwart, which is an incredible company, a cybersecurity professional services company, and one of those companies where the people who were part of Stalwart are still more a brotherhood with each other than they are with their current companies, and it's been a decade now or whatever. We all still get together and talk, and we're on group chats together. And I'm only on one group chat. The only group chat that I have on my phone is that group of guys. So yeah. Anyway, long rambling answer to your simple question. Yeah. Yep.
Well, Vizius emphasizes pragmatic assessments, realistic roadmaps, expert implementation. How do you translate that into real outcomes for your clients?
Yeah. So one of the cool things about Vizius is we're very much focused on pragmatic solutioning. Everyone in the company is a builder first. So we've all had to build systems, IT systems, whether that be software, whether that be networks, and so we're focused on, as we say, selling peace. If you're in cybersecurity, your job is to service the business. And if you don't understand how the business operates, if you don't understand how the business makes money, if you don't understand what it takes to actually operate a network, manage a network, maintain a network, build a network, then your advice is going to be often very poor. So that's a rule across the board. We have no tinfoil hat cybersecurity people that just spew recommendations that have no basis in pragmatic, practical reality. So that's, I think, our guiding principle for us. And ultimately, it stems from our core value, which is to do unto our neighbor as we'd have them do to us. Love thy neighbor. So we have one core value as a company, and it's everywhere. We evaluate everything through that lens. And that's one of the ways that we do that in the cybersecurity world. One of our partner companies, I think, has 30, 39, 36, something like that, core values. It's mind-boggling.
Yes. I'm not sure how you work through that, but okay.
Yep.
Well, can you walk us through a recent engagement, perhaps a pen test or compliance project, and what success looked like for your client?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's one. We had a client who's a publicly traded advanced manufacturing, and they had some major compliance challenges. They were actually under a consent agreement with the government for some challenges that they had in with respect to the CCL. That's the other export control. So there's you have ITAR, and then you have like the CCL, which is general export control stuff, not weapon stuff. And so they had this mess, which is we have the government with basically an auditor breathing down our neck, and we have a tight timeline, and we need to get our IT compliant in a way that doesn't break the business. So that's our sweet spot. We love to be in that place. High stakes, high pressure, solving problems that other people haven't solved. Our unofficial tagline within the group of engineers is we solve hard problems. So, for this customer, we're building in Azure GovCloud, we're building with GCC High, because we have to meet ITAR requirements, export control requirements, CUI, so CMMC requirements. We had to build stuff for physical hardware, like in a manufacturing setting, and we had to connect that to cloud infrastructure as well as like engineering compute infrastructure, and do that all in a way that's compliant, but also people can actually use and live with on a day-to-day basis. They didn't want to do any discovery or assessment of the situation. They wanted someone who would jump, and we're crazy enough to do that. So we just started building the engine as we were flying it, and but we had such a great we built through that such a great partnership of understanding where we could come to them and say, hey, look, we're gonna have to change out this firewall because we had certain assumptions and now those are broken, and they were very understanding, and we were it was just something like that takes a lot of partnering, and that's what we love. We love clients that really see us as a partner, a true partner. And that's where we love to live, right? Like we take on our clients like it's our business. So when we see opportunities for cost savings, we're going to go after that. When we see opportunities to streamline things, we're going to go after that. Like we love living in that kind of environment.
What industries are you guys mostly prevalent in?
Yeah, so I'd say we're fairly industry agnostic. Our guiding principle is if the client sees technology as an enabler of their business, then they're a good fit for us. So if the client looks at technology as like just a cost center and it's a commodity and it doesn't really matter to their business, it's not core to who they are, how they operate, then we're probably not going to be a good fit. But in terms of where some of our largest clients are, fintech, um, the sort of SaaS space, software as a service, advanced manufacturing, um, strangely enough, commercial real estate. Um, Commercial real estate, we have a number of large clients in that space. But none of that's a targeted focus. Like we're not going out targeting these markets. This just is organic referral growth. That's how our business operates. It's all referral. So we are where we've been referred.
I mean, you've got such a great reputation.
Yeah, yeah.
I've served as a fractional CISO with several clients, and one thing always comes up, and I'm curious with you guys if you see the same thing. Security is both technical and organizational. Someone has to own it in the company. Um, with your client, when you go into your engagements, who do you typically see owning security? Is it the CISO, the CIO? I'm sorry, the CIO, the IT director or manager or compliance team, the risk management group, or even the board for that matter?
Yeah. It seems to vary by industry, at least in our experience. So like in commercial real estate, it tends to be owned by somebody with like a risk hat. So some sort of risk, but they usually are, cybersecurity is a very small part of their risk portfolio. And in manufacturing, what we've seen is it tends to be, again, it depends on the scale. Most of our manufacturing clients are on the much larger side of things, so they'll have either a director of security or a CISO. Then, of course, there's usually some kind of complex global structure. So for us, we do a lot of enterprise work, so we're interacting with some portion of a larger hydra. In general, the security representation with our clients and with our experience doesn't control much in the way of budget. Usually, it's like CIO or compliance that has kind of the purse strings, is the executive sponsor that has the budget. But we are usually working with the CISO or security director, and so they're kind of serving as that technical SME for project approval, and then the other stakeholder is the budget approval. This tend to be what we see. So to summarize that, legal, compliance, IT tend to be who we work with the most, and then risk.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of been my experience as well. So I'm glad you kind of validated that. I mean, I reported to when I was a fractional at one point. I reported to the chief risk officer, who also was the general counsel. Then there was one time when I reported directly to the audit committee on the board. So yeah, you're right. It just depends, but
Yeah.
at least getting someone to take ownership is what I find is critical, right? Especially at the board level, so they understand what's going on. And you've got the support from top down. Well, security changes from day to day, right? With the advent of AI and everything else going on right now, what kind of vulnerabilities keep you up at night?
Yeah, the one that keeps me up at night is one specific one right now because it affects everyone, and most companies are not properly addressing it yet. And it's an area where the attackers have moved much faster than the defenders, and it's current, and that's man-in-the-middle phishing. Phishing evolved dramatically from about 3 years ago till now. Basically coincides with Microsoft pushing MFA on everyone really hard. This forced the attackers to adjust. And the way they adjusted was by switching over to man-in-the-middle phishing instead of the traditional trying to get your username and password approach. So, apologize for that. Caleb has decided that that's my son's name, that he's got something very important to share. Um, it's hard to think with that happening at the same time. But anyway, man in the middle phishing. So man in the middle phishing. The challenge is, so yeah, Microsoft pushed multi-factor on everyone, and everyone sort of beating the drum on multi-factor, and insurance got on board, and everyone was like, yeah, we rolled out multi-factor. Phishing is mostly a thing of the past now. People talked about MFA fatigue attacks and some other like ways of social engineering people to push the button, and those always existed, but those could not operate sort of en masse, right? That's always going to be a little bit niche. But what people weren't ready for was for attackers to pivot into this man in the middle situation where the user genuinely thinks they're signing in to the legitimate site and they're not, and the user is proxying their login in such a way that the login is really happening to the real site. So your real multi-factor, let's say you're using Authenticator, really gets pushed, and you think you're logging into Microsoft and you hit accept. But what's actually happening is you're helping your attacker log in. Then they redirect you to the site and let you sign in with the cookie, so you don't know that you're signing in again. And it looks to you like you just signed in and nothing happened. Meanwhile, they've got your cookie, which is your entire identity. It's that thing that lives in your browser that, the reason you don't have to sign in every time you change a page or every time you go back to a website that you've signed into is because in your browser is stored a little token called a cookie. And that is your identity fully. Like if you have that, multi-factor is useless, your password doesn't matter, nothing matters. That's your whole identity. So when the attackers are proxying your login, they're capturing that and redirecting you to log in, but now they've got that cookie. And for the next 30 days, 90 days, whatever the expiry on that cookie is, they are now you. And so there's pretty much only one way around this attack, and it's some form of conditional access that checks that you're coming from a valid machine, you're coming from a valid IP address, you have some other mechanism to check that it's not that proxy in the middle attacker. So that's the thing that every company needs to be figuring out how they answer the question of, do I have some way of conditional access? Some way to prove that this login attempt is coming from a controlled corporate device and not from some in the middle attacker out of AWS server somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting so much more sophisticated than what it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's the particular vulnerability that keeps me up at night. It affects everyone. If you don't have conditional access, you're completely vulnerable to it, and it will get you.
Absolutely. How much of your work now is driven by manual processes versus automated scanning or machine analysis?
Yeah. So this is a really interesting one, especially in the pen test space right now. It's still overwhelmingly manual. Obviously, it's supported by a lot of automation, right? A lot of tooling. So the community in pen testing has built up a ton of really powerful tools, right? So, when I say manual, I generally mean like it's, let's say like driving a car is manual, right? Like obviously there's a bunch of machinery there. You're not out there running down the road, but you're still driving the car versus like a self-driving car. That would be like fully automated. So we're very much still in a like humans driving the car situation. We have really powerful tools, like a really powerful car, but the humans at the wheel, the humans pushing the buttons, the humans turning the. But we're on the precipice of entering an era where it doesn't have to be human on the wheel, just like we're on the precipice of self-driving cars. And just like self-driving cars, they could be really successful in certain scenarios and really unsuccessful in other scenarios. And you're not ever sure when that is or why that is. And that's why there's, this rollout of self-driving cars is taking a while. It'll be the same in pen testing. We'll do sort of I assume where the industry is going to head is we're going to have some low cost people that want to like just check the compliance box at the lowest possible cost will leverage these services pretty heavily. And they don't really care what the output is. You're going to have the middle that's like genuinely interested in risk reduction, but also is cost conscious. And they might do some sort of pairing where they have AI with human validation. Then, of course, you'll still have like the fully manual, but that will also use AI to sort of the other way around. Like one will be sort of AI first with human validation. The other will be like human led, but AI validated, right? So they'll leverage AI as a tool for their manual efforts. So that'll be like the three. I see that as kind of where we're headed.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Well, tell us a little bit about how Vizius is using AI or machine learning for threat detection or anomaly analysis in your pen testing or monitoring.
Yeah. So we currently don't use any AI in our direct testing services. We use them a little bit on the back end. We use them heavily on the back end from just like a business operations standpoint, like boring stuff like generating WBSs and project plans and stuff like that. We leverage a ton of AI for that. We leverage AI a little bit for some data synthesis and searching through some of the output of some of the tools. Some of the report generation, when we're talking about building deliverables, we'll often do like a first draft with AI, or we'll use AI to kind of just freshen things up, just like rotate things, get our minds going a little bit. But we don't currently leverage AI in the actual assessment product yet. We are demoing a few right now. We're doing some bake-offs, technical bake-offs, but nothing that we're happy with yet to like push to a customer. And if we ever do, well, we will eventually, I'm sure. But when that time comes, it's going to be in a very transparent fashion. So, I would engage with a customer to say, hey, look, these tools have gotten really good. Do you want us to leverage these tools? Or do you want us to do fully manual or some combination? Kind of lay out those 3 lanes and let the client choose, and of course, guide them in the conversation about their budget and cost sensitivities and stuff like that. But definitely that will come. We're not quite there yet.
When I was serving as the fractional CISO, every single time logging was a big issue, right? That's one of the first things that we had to address, obviously. So do your clients typically come to you with a mature SIM or logging offering, or are you often building foundational data pipelines first?
Yeah. So interestingly, when we got into this business, I thought we would be doing a lot more SIM work than we do. And I don't know why that is. We have extraordinarily high competency in SIM from our past work. We've done a bit of SIM work in this current iteration of the company, but in our past lives, like Glenn and I and a bunch of people on the team have done really high-end SIMs for really big clients, like very, very complex SIMs. So it's been surprising to me how little we've leveraged that experience. Just the luck of, what client has what need at what time, right? But we have done some SIM work. It's been mostly most of our larger enterprise clients. We come in, there's a SIM already established, but we're often building enclaves for compliance purposes. So in those settings, so far they've all been Azure GovCloud setups. So we've used Sentinel for those. Sentinel, I don't know what your opinions on Sentinel are, but it works. It can be made really, really good with a lot of work put into it. But it's a sort of easy, it's there, it's compliant, and the needs inside the enclave are usually very small. We're talking about like 20 people and like very limited use cases, right? So it's very easy to make like a tight set of rules and a simple SIM setup. Then one of the more complex aspects is we usually have to get like the alerting back to their commercial SIM. So we'll leverage like an event hub for that and kind of publish the alerts only, which aren't restricted information, and then we can consume them into the commercial SIM, that sort of thing. But for some of our smaller clients, we've leveraged Sumo Logic just to get them something. It's very cost effective. It's easy to set up, and it's cloud hosted. It's very easy. And so with a number of our smaller clients, we've gotten them into just a basic Windows event logs, O365 logs, some basic firewall logging, just like the basics into a Sumo Logic setup, but nothing fancy.
Yeah, the SIM is one of those areas where you can get to a pretty big expense if you're not careful.
Oh yeah, and that's been part of it with a lot of our clients is the budget appetite for SIM, at least with our clients, has not been there. I've had some, like I said, in my past consulting life, some clients that were very interested in spending a lot of money on SIM, and so we've gotten to build some really cool SIMs in the past, but not recently.
Okay. What hurdles do you see in automating incident response, like false positives, customization, or tool complexity?
Yeah. So I'm going to lump this in to the category of handling IT tickets in general, right? Like it's the same problem set, and I'm working with an MSP right now actually to do that using AI to automate their whole as many ticket types as we can. We're basically starting with the most common ticket types and then working our way down. And
Kind of automating their tier one support with chatbots and things like that.
yeah, and more than like a chatbot, like an actual like agent that goes and does the thing, right? So not like a thing you can talk to. We already have that, and in fact, we already have it so that it's putting the recommendation right in the ticket system. So when the tech gets the ticket, there's already a recommendation based on all the previous tickets from that client, from that person, right? Like so that part we've already got, and that's really helpful. But the next step is like automate the whole thing. So for a lot of these ticket types, you you've got your RMM, which can run PowerShell on whatever you want. You could deploy PowerShell to gather information to validate a problem, and then deploy PowerShell to fix the problem, assuming it's fixable without some user approval or something. That's all automatable for a large number of ticket types. So we're working through that right now. Is what the key is. What does the detection approach look like for that ticket type, and then what's the remediation approach, and then putting the right guardrails around the human in the loop part of that, right? So the idea would be you could run the detections stuff without human in the loop because that should all be safe. Basically, create a whitelist of commands that it's allowed to run that are safe, and then the remediation step, you just have your tech in the loop on, and he reviews the script and approves it. And I've got an idea to have like a sandbox you could run the script in first, which I think would be a good. Anyway, yeah,
Absolutely be a good first step. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, one of the things I've seen from that perspective is just the challenge with having enough clean data to be able to make some of those assumptions. And if there's not a lot of history or good history, clean, standard, data, I mean, that can be challenging as well.
yeah. Let's talk about that. So I think one of the biggest changes in this whole field has been like, how much clean data do you really need? So wind the clock back 5 years. Machine learning, AI, nothing new under the sun. This whole AI thing is not new, but it's different. The scale is different. These foundation models, these large, extraordinarily large models, have been trained against so much data and have so many parameters that their flexibility to deal with not clean, not normalized, what would appear to be very like niche data sets is wild. I mean, the diversity of data that these LLMs have been trained on is such that I almost never need to do fine tuning. At most, I do some RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where I feed in some context. I almost never have to do fine tuning because these models are so diverse in their training set. They're like, they know, like they've seen these problems before, and so yeah, I think the landscape in terms of how much clean data you need has changed, and how clean it needs to be has changed.
Yeah. I mean, they get smarter every day.
Yeah, yeah. That's the other thing I tell people. It's like whatever solution you're thinking about implementing, get started on it. Do some bullets before bombs, right? Start prototyping. And if what you build or start to build isn't working quite well enough, know that 6 months from now, you can just hook it up to a different model and try again. And there's a pretty good chance whatever it was getting hung up on will now just magically work.
Yeah, I was reading the other day where there's something like 16,000 models out there. So I mean, the challenge now is just picking the right one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sites like Hugging Face help a lot with that. You know, I keeping up with it. It is tough, but there are only a few streams of like really high quality like frontier models coming out. there is a huge set of streams of people taking and then fine tuning those models. Keeping up with that layer is really hard. Again, Hugging Face is kind of your best bet, I think, for doing that. Um, but yeah, that's definitely a discipline in and of itself these days.
When you assess a client's posture, where do you see repetitive manual steps? I know we've talked about some of this a little bit, but reporting, triage, policy reviews, just to name a few.
Yeah. Um, so those are risks, right? It's like, is this going to happen? Is it going to be done by somebody who's competent and cares? To steal language from Elon Musk and Doge, competence and caring. Um, Manual processes are great. They can be awesome. They can be very flexible and very powerful. But is the person driving it competent and do they care? That's you're at the mercy of that when it comes to a manual process. So I always those are always a risk to me. And then of course the question is how much of a risk is it and how much would it cost to remediate? And that then you just make a decision, right? Should we automate? How much is that going to cost? What's the risk of not automating? Of course, the cost of automation has gone down a lot. Speaking of LLMs, it's wild what you can do now in terms of somebody who's not like a developer, but if they can use some of these AI-enabled tools, they can build automations really, really quickly and powerfully if they can describe the problem well enough.
Mm-hmm. Are there any legacy systems out there or lack of APIs that you see during your implementations that cause friction?
I mean, always, you always want more, right? Like, there, there's there's always some level at which you're like, oh man, I wish I had access to this or that, or you know, um, yeah. I guess that's the best I can answer that question is sure, but no, that doesn't tend to be a major problem that I run into. Um,
That's fair. One of the challenges I've seen is actually having clients take some of the recommendations that I've given or my team has given and operationalize those. So are you seeing that your clients struggling to operationalize the recommendations? That they struggle building governance models or with change management? I know the governance models are a big one, especially now with AI coming in.
yeah,
People, their whole risk model needs to be changed when it comes to that. And that tends to be overlooked in a lot of cases. But anyway,
yeah, yeah. No, operationalizing stuff is a huge part of the problem. The people struggle with the whole TCO, the total cost of ownership for solutions, and thinking that way, right? They'll think about some software licensing cost or some deployment cost maybe or configuration cost, whatever. But like the ongoing management, care, and feeding of it, the human element, it's tough to get budget for that sometimes. Um, so that's actually how we got into um, the whole remediation side of our business. Like we started pure play cybersecurity, right? Where we come in, we assess, we give findings, recommendations, roadmap. But we found there's this huge operationalization gap, right? Of like taking the recommendations and turning it into something. And clients, consistently were asking if we could do it for them. And so we just started doing that. And now we do a lot of that. We are not in the managed service business, so there's still some step where we have to hand it off to someone to keep all the lights on. But we're now spanning from, hey, let me find your problems to let me recommend how you should fix the problem. And hey, if you want it, we can build that solution for you and then hand it off to your team or managed service team or whatever. We're very, very, very careful with everything that we do as far as projects and deliverables to make sure that they're standalone. Because that's a trap service providers can get themselves into where they're like doing an assessment that's leading to a solution that they want to provide and like artificially tying those together. So we're very clear about having a firewall there. It's like, hey, if you really want us to do this for you, we can, but we're going to give you everything you need to do it yourself, and we'll help you hold your hand as you do it yourself, or have somebody else do it. Like, yeah, that's kind of how we handle that. That's why we got into that whole remediation things, because the operationalization is a challenge, big time.
Where do you see someone like me, a fractional CIO or AI advisor, coming in and helping in this kind of in this process?
Yeah. So I think the biggest issue, the biggest gap I see in the companies that I talk to, in the AI arena in particular, is lack of understanding. And then because people don't really get it, like they don't know how to apply it. They could walk into a business and see all the things that are happening and not have the light bulb shoot off in their brain. Oh my gosh, we could automate that. We don't need to do that anymore. We can replace that. And that stems back to the fact they don't truly understand how the AI models work and what they can and can't do. You know, what are their failure modes? What are the areas where they're successful? And then what's easy, what's hard, right? Like knowing all of that and then walking in and also having the hat that can look at business process, that can look at technical processes, that can, you got to have the foot in both worlds, right? It's the classic role of the C-level technology person, whether that's CISO, CIO, CTO. It's, you got to have a foot in both worlds, right? You got to be able to speak to the business, be able to understand what the business is trying to achieve, but you also got to know the technology well enough that you can know what to bring to bear. And there's just a huge dearth of people that understand how AI radically changes the game. That's what I see. It's lack of vision.
I think, like we talked about a long time ago, people can spell it, but that's about it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's that brass tacks at the ground level. Like, hey, we can automate that. We can automate that. We can't automate that. We shouldn't automate that. Like that kind of.
That whole concept too, that AI is not going to solve everything. You're still going to need human in the loop scenarios and all that kind of stuff. It's not a magic bullet.
Yep. You got to know the failure modes. You have to know the failure modes of AI, and you have to know their capability set, and then what they're good at and what they're not good at, and how, when you need to wrap code around it, or when the raw LLM can just like magically produce the answer. You got to know all those nuances, which comes a little bit from theoretical understanding of what it is. It comes a little bit from studying and keeping up with, the industry, and it comes a lot from experience of doing it.
Right. Agree. Well, as enterprises mature, what do you see as the next frontier? Like continuous compliance, autonomous remediation, or risk prioritization?
Should I keep myself just in the security realm, or should I include the AI realm in this answer?
You can include the AI realm in that.
Okay. So things are going to change a lot. So the relationship between humans, data, and the computer are evolving right now at a very rapid pace. Data and the tools to interact with data have long been the domain of like nerds like me. That's gonna change. It's changing right now, and it's gonna keep changing, to the point where I think in the not too distant future, more of an understanding of the business problem will be more beneficial in solving a lot of sort of what's today tech problems. So I think there's going to be a shift in that direction. There's going to be whole restructurings of huge cost centers inside of enterprises right now. Like in all of the major enterprise clients that I have, there are whole swaths of human activity that are not, that don't need to be done manually anymore. So there's going to be a big realignment. Things like data manipulation, a lot of like, there's just so many people involved in some form or fashion with like massaging data from here to there, transforming data from here to there, taking data out of emails and putting it into forms. Like there's just all this busy work that goes on inside of these companies to slosh data around. And a lot of that's going to go away. People are going to be able to pull insights from data with natural language, sort of the magic of ad hoc query, in such a way that like the whole data science discipline is going to change within corporate setting. It's going to affect finance heavily, legal heavily, IT eventually heavily, all the back office sort of data management, developers a lot, right? Like, and I say it's going to affect, not it's going to eliminate, because, I mean, take software, for instance. I think the demand for software is almost infinite. The cheaper it is, the more you want it, right? If software is cheap and trivial to create, you're going to want an almost infinite amount of it because there's so many problems you can solve if you had infinite cheap software. So I think developers will still continue to have demand for their services. They'll just be more interfacing between humans and code, and they'll probably end up more shifting towards like DevOps roles because it's going to be more about integration and hosting and things like that, and less about cranking out large amounts of code. The whole enterprise data thing is going to change. Gone will be the days of this like ERP bastion that just like has static business logic built into it, and there's going to be this transformation. Either the ERP is going to have to transform or it will get replaced. But there's going to be this focus on the ability to just talk to your data. Your data will need to be entirely flexible in terms of how it exposes itself to the business leader. Ports will still exist, but a lot of them will go away, and they'll be more ad hoc query style. There'll be certain key reports, I think, that stay. I don't know. I could go on forever. There's just an endless series of changes that have to happen. There's a lot of confusion about how to get there. A lot of confusion about or discussion about how to get there, right? Like this whole build versus buy. There's like the one mega solution versus like domain specific solutions that then talk to each other. There's a lot of that's getting figured out right now. But where we're headed is going to be a really interesting place.
I agree with everything you said, and I think there's one key thing that you mentioned in there. Well, there's several, but one in particular that I face on a daily basis, and that's as I go into some of my clients. Everybody's afraid. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. And what I try to do, just like you said a few minutes ago, it's not going to replace anybody, but they need to think of it as an assistant, right? So that's why when I go in, it's always AI assisted. So they get that kind of get that mindset that this isn't to replace you, it's to assist you so you can do more strategic things. Probably the reason you were hired to do, the things you were hired to do in the first place. So you don't do some of this manual stuff. But I think that's really important as you go into some of these folks.
Yeah, the only place I'm seeing a replace mindset is in folks that are already outsourcing overseas. They're very happy sometimes to replace those contract folks with solutions, AI solutions. I haven't had any clients that are like looking to replace internal people with AI at all. Though I have had a couple folks kind of express some interest in that. No, nobody's wanted to act on that. So it's going to be interesting. I agree with you that many use cases are human in the loop use cases. And I also agree that there's a ton of really important work that humans could be doing if they were freed up from some of their drudgery. And that's how most companies, I think, are going to look at this and use this. But I think we would not be totally right if we said that this isn't going to lead to some job elimination. It will. But I don't think it's going to be wholesale, and it won't be fast. I mean, it'll be fast relative to other, like the Industrial Revolution, right? Like it'll be faster than that. But that was reasonably fast. So there will be displacement, and it's going to be up to business owners and leaders to be humans and like lead, and not just be econs. To kind of, we all need to work together to manage this transition, because we can't be what Luddite. If we approach this in a Luddite fashion and just like throw our wooden shoes in the machine and like try to destroy it, like we just all lose. But also there's a risk that AI could lead to bigger disparities, between the haves and the have-nots. So it's incumbent upon all of us as technology leaders in particular, but as a society in general, to figure out how we manage this transition and how we help everybody through the transition. Right now it's easy because it's all so much human in the loop, but some of that will change when the models reach a consistency that is dramatically higher than it is today, but conceivable on the horizon. Yeah.
You've kind of talked about this a little bit, but do you envision Vizius offering more managed or AI-powered services as part of your roadmap?
So not so much in the managed service, but on the AI side, yes, we are. And I actually have a company that I started called Dodo Consulting, which I do my sort of AI solutioning and services through, and I provide those services through Vizius as well. So Vizius resells my AI services, and I work with their engineers, our engineers. I wear more than one hat, so it gets like to do the solutioning and stuff. So yeah, we are getting more and more into offering sort of AI solutions, and we've done some really cool projects with AI. And so we're definitely moving in that direction more and more all the time. We go where our clients have appetite, right? So we throw out suggestion, but we're still early in the adoption curve. A lot of folks are not ready yet to make a move. And I think it's part of that build versus buy trepidation of like, if I start building a thing, is my favorite solution provider, SaaS company that I work with, Salesforce or whatever, just going to roll out this mega AI that does everything, and I will have wasted all this time building this stuff. So I think there's a lot of folks that are kind of in that like trepidation around, should I start doing something? But my advice, obviously I have some bias in this because my industry, it's what I do. I get paid to do this, right? So take my advice with a grain of salt. But my biased advice is start building. Like, it's not that expensive. The returns are huge. You can automate a process that's like I recently had a client who we automated a process that's like 80 hours a month of someone's time. And it's like I don't know, 100 hours to automate it, and then it's done forever. And that's the worst part of that person's job. That's the other thing, in your what you said about freeing people up. It's so true. Like, almost always the AI use case is the part of your job that you hate.
Well, so what internal constraints are you seeing that are most limiting you guys' ambitions? Is it talent? Is it budget? Governance?
Yeah. It's like for Vizius as a company, it's our company maturity. Like, one thing we're about to start EOS right now. Are you familiar with EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System? So we're about to go through that right now, and we identified like, we've been operating with, because we went from 3 people, Laura, Glenn, and I are the founders, and we went from that 3-person core to like 13 people in a few years. And for a company our size, that was a lot of growth. And now what we realized is like, we don't have all the right leadership roles covered. Like, we were all wearing different hats and making it work, but like, now that we're as big as we are, we're finding that we're spending so much time and mental energy like switching hats that we probably need a couple more butts and seats in the leadership team. So like, stuff like that, organizational like growth stuff, and also the maturity of processes. Like, we rolled out Coda. I'm not sure if you've seen Coda. Coda is a cool web front end to a database, essentially. But you can build anything you want there. And we were looking at different professional service management tools, project management tools, whatever. And I was like, man, none of these do exactly what we want, and they're expensive and blah blah blah. I was like, I'm just gonna go build it in Coda. So I kind of got the ball rolling, and then a bunch of guys started jumping in in the company, and we got a bunch of nerds, so we can build stuff. And so we've got Coda. It's not perfect yet. We're still making it better, but it's like every day I can see it. I can see us getting a little bit closer to actually having metrics, and a little bit closer to actually having process. And it's a struggle, but I would say that's challenge A is organizational maturity. We got to grow up, and we're working on it. And B is marketing. We have no idea. We have no idea. None of us are marketers. We have no idea how to market. And we're going through some testing right now, some experiments and some ideas on how to do that. And I have a feeling they're going to bear fruit this time, but I got no history to back that up. I'm not a marketing person. But yeah, right now we're just 100% referral, which is great. But it's like if we want to keep accelerating and growing, I think we gotta figure out the marketing piece. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So my last question here is kind of more for my benefit as I'm growing my business. And basically, I think your side business is a lot like what I'm trying to create as well. So if you guys were to engage a fractional CIO or AI strategist or fractional CAIO to help scale your offerings or your roadmap, I mean, what would be your top priority?
Yeah. So if we were to hire, so obviously I kind of wear that hat for us right now. And, my thinking right now, my biggest challenge, if I were thinking of like, hey, I'm going to take that hat off and just focus on something else and let someone else wear that hat, is pace of change. Managing pace of change, because we have so many different ways that we're trying to grow as a company that I don't know that we could really handle major wholesale like AI projects. What we are doing is individual people are incorporating AI into their personal workflows very heavily, and that's been really effective. But I do think there are some areas where like focused use case creation, like AI projects, could be successful. So out of a fractional chief AI officer, I would need someone who really got that, who got pace of change, who got being able to like really tightly containerize AI use cases to solve like a specific actionable problem that adds real value. And to do that, you got to understand, or at least have the conversation enough to extract from the people who do understand where those nuggets lie. So, like for instance, for us, one of the projects I have on pause that I just don't have time to get to it is proposal writing. Right? Like we all of us. So we have a principal engineer model. So the guy who you talk to originally, the first contact you have, is the guy who understands your problem. He's a technologist or she's a technologist, and that person can write you a SOW. They will lead the project. They'll be the lead person on the project, and they'll be the face you see at the project close. They run the whole thing. We don't have any salespeople, and that's by design. Yeah, that's a whole thing. But we currently today do leverage some AI in the design of certain blocks of text in the project, like some introduction stuff, and we use AI to translate sort of our timelines and SOW requirements into work breakdown structure in a particular format, so we can upload it into our project management tool, Coda. So we are individually leveraging AI, but I think there's a case to be made to kind of build an actual tool around that to just make it all seamless. So there's some little nuggets like that, but there's a lot of things that the chief AI officer would need to keep in mind: the pace of change, privacy requirements, sensitivity of the work we're doing. Like, we're dealing with clients' very sensitive stuff, compliance and cybersecurity, and so having that context, knowing to ask the right questions and knowing where to put the guardrails from a security and compliance perspective. And then that person would need to have the practical experience to look at a business process, to look at some process and say, oh, that part of it would be worthwhile to automate. And here's how we do it. Here's how we use the LLM. Or here's how we use traditional automation. That's the other little dirty secret about all this. A lot of these like automation projects that are like AI projects end up just being traditional automation projects, but they're getting a second look because people have opened their brains a little bit to this AI stuff, and they're like, oh, we should automate stuff. Oh yeah, we should do that thing. And it turns out when you actually dig into it, it's like, you don't need AI at all for this. You just automation.
Yeah, that's kind of the other thing I've found is people don't know the difference between, I like to call it AIifying and automation.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the AI part is just one tiny little piece, but it's an important piece. It ends up being this big automation flow, but there's one little call to the LLM that actually turns out, I mean, it's like really important, but it's a very small part.
That little translation piece.
Yep. Or that little insight piece to the end user, so it's actually understandable and not just some gobbledygook numbers or whatever. Yep.
Well, David, I appreciate your thoughtful insights into security that works and how pragmatic strategy bridges risk and business objectives. For listeners wanting to work with Vizius or connect with you, where should they go?
Yeah, Vizius.com, Vizius.com. That's our site. There's contact information on there. I assume, Carl, you have you can put my contact info with. Is there a standard place that you put the contact info, Carl?
I'll put it in there when I post the podcast. I'll put it in there.
Okay, great. Yeah. So, my contact information will be in that, and feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my phone and my email in there, and so you can reach out to me. Happy to help. Happy to help anyone that has any technology needs, cybersecurity, IT, whatever. Basically, our bar is we solve hard problems. So if it's the problem that the IT team doesn't want to touch, that no one has bandwidth for, that other companies are like, no, that's not what we do. We don't do that. That's often a good case for us.
And for our audience, if this episode got you thinking about scaling security, integrating automation, or operationalizing governance, we'd love to chat. Visit us at Protelligent.com or connect on LinkedIn. Until next time, question more, build stronger, and stay on the edge of intelligence.